I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I'm back to review the next episode of Primal Season 2, Episode 3, Dawn of Man. A very interesting episode, one which may very well mark the ultimate change in the status quo. Don't know if you can hear that, there's a train going by, but I'm just gonna have to let it go because I can't exactly ask it to stop. Anyway, let's get down to the details. The episode opens pretty much in the aftermath of where the last episode, Shadow of Fate, left off. Not immediately, but we're still dealing with the aftermath of what happened in that Celtic village where Fang's potential new mate, Red, at least that's what I'm calling him, was ultimately killed. And it's fairly heartbreaking to see because Fang is just despondent. She's laying there, staring off at nothing. It's raining, and the way the rain is falling down her face kind of makes it look like she's crying. But you can tell that even as Spear tries to wipe those away, she's just not there. She's depressed in the extreme. And Spear doesn't know what to do. He tries comforting her. He gets frustrated and sort of storms off to just let her be alone. But after a few moments, we find that they both actually came back together looking for each other because even with everything that's happened, they still don't want to be apart. There's a bug buzzing around here as well. This is going to be a very interesting unscripted video, but anyway. They come back to each other. Things still haven't really gotten back to normal, though. They find a cave, and, well, I don't know. Spear and Fang are just sort of lost at this point. They have no real direction to go in. They don't really have any idea what to do next or how to address all the things that happened in the previous episode. So, while Fang is just sort of laying there in her depression, Spear decides to explore the cave a little bit, and he finds cave paintings indicating that people like him at least used to be in the area. They might even still be there. When the morning comes and the rain is dried up, he goes out and he does a little exploring and winds up inventing the art of archaeology because he finds evidence of where those other cave people who lived in this land used to be. But the key word there, key phrase I should say, is used to be, because what he finds are ruins, an encampment of people that probably were like him, but they vanished long ago. Whether they just packed up and left, or moved on, or were wiped out, we don't know. But the fact is, Spear kind of does some self-reflection in this sequence, because he's found an area where he's getting a sense of familiarity from everything he's seeing. This is stuff he knows. It's not like the odd culture of the Celts that he just found. It's not a completely wild civilization. It's something that he knows, and therefore he takes some solace in knowing that he wasn't just an isolated case. But at the same time, as mentioned, they're gone. And every other human being he's met up to this point is well ahead of him. Even when he takes up a new spear that he finds in this area, a spear being the weapon, of course, and he tries setting things back to normal by killing one of those ungulate creatures and bringing it back for Fang to eat, things don't reset. Other episodes, like especially back in season 1, we saw a reset where the characters would get through the situation in one episode and they're just moving on in the next episode. But here, no one's moving on. Although, part of the message is that Spear needs to move on in a particular way. Back in the land where he and Fang originated, Spear managed to stay on top of the food chain for the most part because he was the most advanced thing in that area. He was a caveman, sure, but a caveman is still leaps and bounds ahead of, say, a gorilla or a dinosaur or a mastodon or something. So he had the advantage. Here in this new land, he's clearly at a disadvantage. And as said, the people that were like him that used to be there aren't there anymore, and we don't know what happened to them. So Spear is sort of realizing as he's exploring this new world that he's got to change, he's got to adapt. And he's also realizing that because Fang is so distant after the events that happened, there's a possibility he might not be able to rely on her the same way that he used to. Which, again, is hinting at stuff that might happen in the finale, but we'll see. Anyway, he needs to adapt. That's the point. That is the gist of this episode. That's even where the title comes into play. So, this episode is about us seeing him adapt when all of a sudden Vikings appear. Yeah, Vikings. They showed up. Some people at the end of Season 1 were shocked to see what appeared to be a Viking ship hauling Mira away across the ocean. I didn't necessarily jump right to Viking because, knowing my history, I could say that the ship we saw could have been a Viking ship, but it also could have easily been, say, a Mesopotamian ship. Look it up. The styles are actually very similar. The Vikings developed it on their own, but it wasn't so much a brand new style as it was just sort of a rediscovery that by astronomical coincidence bore a strong resemblance to what came before. But anyway, I didn't necessarily jump right to Viking, but now it's unambiguous. These are Vikings, which I'll get to that, to the implications of what that could mean in a moment. But the thing is, the Vikings outclass Spear. They have armor, they have swords, they have shields. And, I mean, they're still riding on wild animals, those giant grizzly bear creatures, but at the same time, just on their own, they've got an edge. Spear still manages to win, but there's a moment where he almost is basically staring down death's door until Fang intervenes on his behalf. And that's the moment where he takes up this fallen Viking sword, figures out how to use it based purely on observing how the Viking did it, and then takes up the shield as well, and it's like, okay, he is now growing. Now he is better equipped to handle this world. So that's very interesting that they are bringing Spear in that direction, and it's a natural change. You can see how Spear is growing and figuring things out. He's not necessarily accepting every new aspect of this world. There's a moment where, as he's alone at night, he tries doing that praying to the moon thing that he saw Mira do, but he doesn't quite grasp fully what's going on and isn't really convinced that it actually does anything. Whether or not that ever is expanded on, we will see. But other aspects that he does understand, like what is a good weapon, that he can wrap his head around. So he gets that pretty well. And then we get to the other big surprise. In addition to the Vikings showing up, he finds Mira, like, pretty quickly. It's only been if you count season 1, we've only known about Mira for 4 episodes total of this series. And if we count season 2 as a new beginning, you would have thought it would take longer. The stories in which the hero goes to rescue the damsel, that mission usually takes at least 2/3 of the story. Not because it's a cliche, but because it's tradition. That's just how it works. It can be good, it can be bad. It's just the way it is. So it's kind of surprising that Spear found Mira this quickly. Like, we're only 3 episodes in, like I said, and there she is, along with all the other people that have been enslaved. And that's surprising, but it also has me thinking there must be some kind of twist coming. Because if you found Mira this easily, I mean, all things considered, it was easy, but if he found her this quickly and this easily, then there must be something else going on. There must be some sort of twist coming. And of course, the episode does end on a huge cliffhanger where Spear is getting ready to take on an army of Vikings essentially on his own. I have a feeling Fang is going to intervene somehow, but he's staring them down solo at this point. There's got to be something more. There's got to be something else that they're building to that will add greater stakes than just Spear finding Mira. But what could those be? This is where I get into the wild speculation. Okay, so stick with me on this. I've been thinking about what kind of world Primal is set in. And at first, it seemed pretty clear that what we were looking at was a prehistoric kitchen sink, for all intents and purposes. The sort of thing that was popular in the classic pulp adventure stories that inspired Primal, where if it was BC, it was fair game. Whether it was creatures, whether it was civilization, anything, you just threw it all in, and whatever you got, that belonged in the story. But there still seemed to be a certain logic to it, because, you know, you have dinosaurs, you have other forms of prehistoric life, you have cavemen, you have those elements to them. So it made sense that you had that homogenized area, and then when you brought in the idea that there were more advanced civilizations out there, like I said, could have been Vikings, could have been Mesopotamian or Assyrian or Egyptian. We didn't really know at the end of season 1, but you could actually formulate the idea that, sure, in this prehistoric landscape, some regions of the world probably developed at a faster rate than others, just like they do in the real world. But now we know that the Vikings actually are here. And Vikings are not BC. Vikings are far more recent in the grand scheme of things. And yes, Viking elements are always added into fantasy, even stuff that's meant to take place in like the Hyperborean age or whatever. But they were never literal Vikings, unless we're going on Norse mythology being the true basis of the world, in which case it would make sense for the Vikings and their stuff to have been around for longer. But no, this is clearly not going for that. So what is going on? That's got me thinking, and I do have a potential theory. Now, we could look at this as potentially evidence that Spear and Fang just originate from a Lost World kind of area. They come from some isolated place akin to Caspak or Skull Island, where prehistoric life never died out, and now that they are off of that isolated land, they find that the rest of the world has moved on without them. That is a possibility, except for the fact that we know dinosaurs exist beyond wherever Spear and Fang came from. Like, this new land is where Fang hooked up with Red. So I don't think that's the case. Clearly, there's something else going on. It can't just be that they existed on this isolated area, and now they're finding that millions of years passed by without anyone in that area noticing. There's got to be more. So now I'm wondering, what evidence do we actually have that we are on Earth? Like I said, this is going to be a wild speculation, but it just dawned on me. We have a prehistoric kitchen sink, clearly, where creatures from all across what is called prehistory are all coexisting in one area. But now we're seeing that there are other kinds of primitive civilizations, and even civilizations that are more recent, even if they're still considered less advanced than what we have today. We have the prehistoric Celts, sure, but we also have Vikings. And these are alongside all of the mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and T-Rexes and velociraptors. But also, we have things that have no precedence, like the Batmen or the giant spider or the ape men. Not to mention such weird things as the zombie virus, the witch coven, that weird night hunter creature. Something's weird about this place. Something more than just, it's a prehistoric landscape. What if this is not Earth at all? There's a common trope in older sci-fi, certainly. I don't know how often it gets used these days, but you occasionally see stories where aliens take different forms of life from all across Earth's history, from the most ancient of times to the far-flung future, depending on the story mechanics, and they all get put on this other planet for whatever reason. Wildlife preserve, hunting ground, grand science experiment, bizarre game being played by the aliens, or they're just doing it to see how it plays out. It's like The Sims to them. So it has me wondering, could that be the twist we're building towards? Could it be that there's more going on here that implicates something far more cosmic? I have no idea, mind you, and there are some shots from the trailer for Season 2 that clearly indicate there's something much, much grander going on. Not to mention there's at least one episode description I've read which doesn't give away too much, but does say that it will potentially be explaining the backstory of what we're seeing. So, only time will tell, I guess, but I just can't help but feel that something else is going on here. Still, though, the main thrust of this episode is that the status quo is done. Spear has developed, he's adapted, he's now more prepared for this world. Fang remains to be seen what'll happen with her, but they've found Mira, they've found at least a potential enemy. We don't necessarily know if the Vikings are her original captors. Again, there are some shots from the trailer that make me think the Vikings are not the be-all, end-all. But either way, everything's going to be different moving forward. How different remains to be seen. But this was quite an interesting way to get around to it. And we will see if the next episodes deliver on the promises made. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.